You're listening to the Bathtub Refinishing Podcast. Powered by Bathtub Guys Refinishing. We discuss the refinishing industry, interview owners and operators, and give tips to business owners and entrepreneurs. Now, here's your host, Daniel Montalvo.
All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm doing something a little bit different today. I was originally going to do a solo podcast today, but I was like, maybe it'd be more interesting if I tried something a little bit different. So I haven't done a solo podcast in ages, but for those of you who don't know, like I started this entire podcast thing like by myself in like a room, lonely back in the old days. The first 5 or 6 episodes were like that, I believe. But anyway, we're not by ourselves today because I am actually live streaming this on Refinish Bath Solutions Instagram while I am recording this podcast. So that's going to be interesting. Tubtex, thank you for joining the live. Hey, you guys, if you guys have any questions while I'm doing this podcast, feel free to, ask them. That's kind of the point of this whole thing. I wanted to, be on the live, but also I'm recording at the same time. And for those of you in the recording, sorry for addressing the crowd. But anyway, I haven't done one of these in a little while. One of the things that I wanted to discuss and I think is interesting for people out there, and this is, I'm not going to be talking too much about detail, but I do want to talk about having and mixing friendship and business. And when, just some things to look out for, right? These are things that are 100% my fault. Just because like I should have done a better job at communicating like the issues that I was like foreseeing. And, I'll take full responsibility for what happened. But at the end of the day, this is a little story time. So, in our company's, history, obviously sometimes what happens is people see you doing well and they gravitate towards you. We've had people that are family or friends of family work with us, and it's almost never really worked out. And a lot of the times, the intention and the motive from the beginning of them even being interested in like working together with you is because they see you doing well. And some of it is either like jealousy or like very rarely is it actual admiration. A lot of the times it's them seeing how much they can get out of you because they see you as somebody who has it all figured out to an extent, right? Shout out to Rodney, All in One Coatings. He's there in the live. What's up, brother? So, but the other part of the equation, right, is like what happens when it's business first and then it becomes a friendship. And this actually happened to me recently. I'm not going to name names. You guys already know, probably if you've watched the podcast before, who I'm talking about here. And it's nothing like all my love to him, his family, everybody. Truthfully, like I don't have any bitterness or hatred, but I do want to talk about this because it's important. So I became really, really close friends with an individual who it started as business, but it very quickly became friendship. And part of the issue that like now I can see in hindsight clearly is that I saw us as peers, and we were peers because he had his own business, I had my own business, and it was never really like a power dynamic. There never really needed to be because the way I figured was like, no, we have similar goals, we have similar aspirations, we're on the same like wavelength, right? And that is until what I thought was a good idea at the time, which was to bring him along into my business. And again, it's not a bad idea because of anything he did in particular. It's not just that, because I'm not trying to like put point blame here, but what I am saying is like what happened to us and why we had a falling out is because I was too afraid to muddy the waters with somebody that I considered a friend, because up until that point, we had always been equals and always been like peers. He, like I said, again, he had his own business. I had my own business. And then we started working together. And then I was in a position where I had to be his superior, and it felt weird. And because it felt weird, I avoided those difficult conversations. And I was pretty much being a bad boss because I wasn't directing him or telling him what he was doing wrong. Um, and in my head at the time, the justification was, well, he should know. But that's also wrong, right? Because he knows how to do his operation, how he works, doesn't necessarily know my operation and how I work. And if I'm not communicating that to him, then I'm just being a shitty boss. Like in all honesty, um, and that's something that happened to me in my operation, and it ended up not working out, and we let him go and all that stuff. And we had a falling out. Like, we don't really talk anymore. He used to help host this podcast a lot, so you guys can guess who it is. But um, again, like, that is a failure on my part as a business owner, and it's just something to be cautious about. Make sure that when you get into the position where you start working with individuals, and this is not like the hiring and working with family is a whole separate conversation that I've had before. But when the person that you're doing business with starts to become very close, very friendly, more like more like a family member, right? What you want to do is just never lose the fact that, like, you have to be assertive and put your foot down. And again, it doesn't mean he was doing anything bad. Honestly, I could sit here and say he didn't do A, B, and C, but if he was never directed to not do A, B, and C, then how can I be upset, right? And that's what it comes down to, is that I wasn't communicating effectively, and it cost us, a friendship. And I'm sorry to that individual. Like, I've tried, reaching out to talk about it. I understand that he doesn't want to. It is what it is. But like, as a business owner, the lesson that I take from that is, like, uh, you need to speak up. And if somebody who has their own business that you see as a peer comes along and starts working for your business, you need to assert that, like, the hierarchy kind of a thing. You can't just go based off of assumptions. You can't, always, like, wish, that every single person is just going to be able to see what's in your brain. And that's kind of the mistake that I made there. So for those of you asking, like, 'cause I get a lot of questions about it. For those of you asking about it, that's really what happened. Like, it is, there was things that I feel like should have been done that weren't being done, but at the same time, how can I be upset that they weren't getting done if I never communicated it to him? And again, it all happened because I was assuming that, uh, you know, that he would, like, understand what needed to be done, but I wasn't directing him properly, and that's a failure on my part. So I didn't want to touch on that briefly. Some other things, though, on a positive note, guys. I want to thank Danny Garcia coming on the podcast, and also, man, just always being there, always being like a mentor to us, and a voice of reason. Patrick over at Refinish Bath Solutions. Obviously, I'm hosting this on the RBS page while I'm live, but, like, genuinely a good guy. And I've had, like, there's one thing I could say about Patrick, and I mentioned this on the last podcast that I did with Danny Garcia. It doesn't matter, like, there's always at least, like, once or twice a week where Patrick and me will casually hop on like an hour call. And this is an individual that's, busy, has his own operation, and has kids and a family and stuff. And, like, obviously I have all that stuff too, but, it's like, people are busy. They have stuff going on. And the fact that he, like, makes that sort of time to talk, just shows, like, his dedication, and he cares about what he's doing and what he puts his stamp on. So it's been super cool to have people like that. And I would caution anybody who's listening, like, if you don't have that sense of community, if you don't have people you can turn to and talk to, let me tell you something, guaranteed. Daniel Montalvo has made every single mistake under the sun. I've had high highs, I've had low lows, I've had the lowest of lows. And obviously, when you're in business, you start meeting other people, and one could easily assume that everyone's always winning. But when you talk to Danny Garcia, he mentioned like the other day on the last podcast, he had $150,000 mistake happen. Um, I'm sure Patrick has his fair share of stories of things that didn't work out and didn't go well. So what I'm getting at here is this is a good community to become a part of, talk to other refinishers, talk to other people in the space, and just kind of have some people you can turn to. Like I've if anything I can say about the people that I've met in this industry, the ones who are willing to talk and put themselves out there have all been like stellar people. When I meet them in person, they're like super super warm, super super nice. And a lot of the times they just want what we all want, right? They want to better their situation, better opportunity for their family, and those are all things that we all kind of just share in common, right? So shout out to all those people, man, because it's definitely refreshing to have people like that. Um, let's talk about some bathtub guy stuff. I haven't shared a whole bunch about what's been going on here in a minute. Um, so I had at one point, I believe it was like February ish. I had like we were like capped out at like 9 technicians between Orlando and Tampa, and this is a good thing. Like I'm glad that I've been able to make these mistakes so that I can like put it into perspective and then just learn. Right, the lessons honestly are worth sometimes the headache because now you're not going to make those mistakes again, right? But uh, I realized like around like 9 technicians that like I I was not generating enough to keep them. So we slowly started, going back down and coming back down to earth a little bit. And now we're like stable at like 6 technicians. Um, and I realized like I'm making more money, more profit, honestly, because you generate more with more guys, but we're profiting more with less guys. And then I realized I started doing some stuff on Jobber. Actually, guys, if you guys use Jobber, it actually shows you like the people that are the top performers. So like the people who have generated the most. And if you put in their hourly cost, it'll tell you like how much they make you per hour, which is super, super cool. And it's something that you should definitely know, especially when you start hiring guys, because it is like hard to gauge, especially if you don't have like a team and it's just you and like a helper or a couple people in management. And you start getting into admin, you want to know those things, right? Um, but I realized like 6 guys were outperforming and out profiting 9, so we started like scaling down a little bit. In the meantime, the other individual that I was mentioning before was originally running Bathtub Guys Tampa, but that kind of whole thing fell through. And so what ended up happening was I actually put one of my cousins to run Bathtub Guys Tampa. Shout out to Patricia and Gabriel. They're like doing that because they wanted to get into the bathtub refinishing industry. And I've talked about it in the past, but like a lot of people have opinions about me and stuff, and they think that I'm just some greedy guy and like all this stuff. I've heard used car salesman kind of vibe for me, I guess, um, which is funny because I'm like the complete opposite. Like I have people in my market who have bought Tubcast. I've sold it to competitors, not just people who are family, but I've sold it to legitimate competitors. And it's funny because one time it all just kind of came like the chickens came home to roost hard because we all got a call from the same hotel, and I'm over here telling them, yeah, we have an exclusive, and they're like, yeah, the other guy said he has that, and it turns out that a couple of the people around my area that I sold product to all bid on the same hotel with the same product. So sometimes to my detriment, I've been too nice, um, but just to put it all into perspective real quick. So my cousin Patricia and Gabe are running uh Bathtub Guys Tampa right now. They're doing a really, really good job over there. Um and they wanted to get back into the industry. Like my cousin Gabriel was doing bathtub refinishing for years and years, but the chemicals were really like taking a toll on him. And look, like the traditional stuff, I mean, I'm not gonna beat a dead horse, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. It is harsh on you. You can follow all the PPE stuff and stuff like that. And yeah, you're going to mitigate it if you follow all the stuff. But you're never going to fully, get away from that because the chemicals are harsh and, they will take a toll on you, just being around them and exposing yourself to them a lot. So he was out of the industry for a long time. And then he wanted to get back into it because, their mom got sick and, they wanted to do something for themselves and have a business. And our family has been doing bathtub refinishing forever. It's not just the immediate family, like me, my brother, like my parents. My dad showed my aunt on my other, on Julian's side of the family, which you guys, Julian runs Jacksonville, Texas, for us, showed his side of the family how to do, tub refinishing way back in the day. And so in Orlando, there's bathtub guys, but there's also all tub and tile. And then now there's Go To Tub Pros, three companies that are all like from family, which is funny because it all goes back to, way back when my dad started this in 1993 up in Massachusetts. And then it's they got into the industry now. They, Go To Tub Pros, and they're trying to build up and kind of do their thing. And so, but they wanted to avoid the chemicals, right? So I told them, yeah, man, like I'll let you use Tubcast. I have no problem with that. It's family. And another justification for it too was like, I'd rather see, the work go to a family member than like a stranger. Right. But I have pretty much created 3 competitors in my own market. And, they, it's like again, people have opinions about me and the type of person that I am, but I always try to help the most people that I can possible, especially family, right? Because, you got to help family, man. You never know when you're going to need them back. So, I help them and they're doing wonders, over in Tampa in the meantime, while they get their own operation kind of off the ground. But yeah, All Tub and Tile is actually owned by Julian and his mom. So like Julian and his mom have, that, and then Julian runs Bathtub Guys for me in Jacksonville, and he also runs Bathtub Guys in Texas. Which, man, Texas is doing good, man. We like about a month in, we locked down a project for 150 tubs over there, so that's doing well. And then the residential market over there has been insane. Like I'm actually trying to like study why it's doing so well and trying to like compare it to Orlando to try to match it because our cost per lead is like crazy low, and then the volume of leads is like super high. Just so you guys know, we're serving San Antonio and Austin over there, and then obviously Jacksonville serving Jacksonville, Tampa is serving Tampa, and so that's kind of an update of where things have gone. I know some people have been asking me about like how the expansion stuff is going, and it's going, but like, dude, you don't like, look, man, as much as I hate to say it, bro, hats off to Operation like Miracle Methods for, like actually expanding and doing it because, dude, it is super hard in an industry like this, especially, right? Because the spray thing is such a big thing of it. Like, it is still what 90% or 99% of companies do. They only do spray over there, and those guys have managed to, build this big operation. Obviously they did it through franchising and all that. It's a little different, but still, man, to be able to do all of that and like keep it organized and functional is like, it is like crazy to do. It was already a huge undertaking. Like once we started expanding into other locations. And then I realized like, sometimes, look, sometimes this is a lesson too. Something that I can give you guys as a business owner that I think like would be valuable. Sometimes what you think is your dream is only appealing because you haven't tried it yet. And then when you try it, you realize that's not really your dream. This next thing is your dream. It's probably a version or it maybe it piggybacks off of what the original thing was. But I really thought for a long time, in all honesty, I really thought for a long time that what I wanted was to be like the next Miracle Method. I wanted to have this big franchise thing and like don't get me wrong. Like if that eventually happens, that's cool. But what I'm getting at is like, I don't necessarily want to be the one to do it. Like, I don't mind if my company's the one, but what I really want more than anything is to help people. Like when I boil down my reasoning, when we started talking about uh, doing bathtub guys like authorized installers, the reason is because the industry is saturated with one man shows, smaller operations, and I love all of you guys, man. Like my whole thinking was not like I'm gonna strip you away of your individuality and take your brand away. My thinking was, wouldn't it be beneficial to all be under this umbrella, the bathtub guys umbrella, that has credibility, has crews and stuff. And if there's 3 or 4 or 5 bathtub guys, then you're the sixth one now. That it makes you instantly credible, and it can help you in your market and all that stuff. And also, part of the lore of this whole thing was, okay, well, the material Tubcast is going to be exclusive, to bathtub guys in this situation. But like that way you can keep that competitive edge. And it's always been like, it wasn't like a vanity project for me, right? It wasn't like, no, I just want every single person to use my name. Like it was never that. It was more like they could benefit from using an established brand, right? That was my reasoning for it. That's why it has since changed a couple times, because the feedback that I got, I mean, a couple people got it and we did work with them. But there was other people who felt like, we were taking their thing and replacing it with our thing. And it was never meant to be that. So what it's turned into, what it's formed into now is, we are looking for people who are partners, and who would like to lock down an exclusive territory. Why did it turn into that? Well, for the same reasoning that we were thinking about doing like Bathtub Guys locations, we want people from day one. Me and Patrick established that we do not want to sell to every single person under the sun. 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is we really want people to have a competitive edge, right? We want people to be able to have something in their market that really like drives and fuels them to like grow and have a chance at like getting to that next level. And if everyone is buying the product in your area, then it's not special anymore. It's just a new standard, in a way, right? It's like everyone's going to do that. And so it's not going to be special. You're not going to have that time like that we've enjoyed here in Orlando, where like I could tell somebody like, hey man, like we're the only game in town with this. And, because I mean, aside from me and my cousins, like there is nobody else doing it. At least full time. But the other side of the coin, right? It was, okay, well, we don't want to sell to anybody either, because if we open the floodgates and sell to anybody with a pulse, well, then you muddy the waters as far as like credibility with the coatings, because as we all know, and we've all probably used like different types of refinishing coatings, everybody has a different experience with who they used. I mean, we used for years another coating manufacturer here out of Orlando. I'm sure you can guess who they are. And like we had decent luck with them, but other people didn't. And a lot of the times it had to do with where they were in their business when they started using it. They started experimenting with it, and eventually got better with another coating. And then but they hate that manufacturer because they had issues with it or whatever. If you're selling to everybody, you open the door up to much more stuff like that. Pretty much what I'm saying is less skilled people are going to be using the product without being properly trained, because it's impossible to train everybody if everybody can get it, right? And then you run into the issues of like people complaining about parts of the product that aren't actual complaints. There's just like lack of, they just don't have the information or the right like protocol. And because they never got trained on it, because it's very hard to train tens of thousands of people, then there is no way to quality control, not quality control the product, but quality control to make sure that we know that you know how to use it, right? There's no way to train everybody when you're selling to everybody under the sun. So from day one, we didn't want to do that. We wanted to we wanted to keep it limited. And this new kind of iteration that we're on of the whole thing was okay. Well, what we'll do is we will treat it like almost like you are. Uh, it's almost like you're a franchise, but there is no strings attached, right? Because you don't have to change your name. You don't have to, use our branding or anything at all. The only thing that we really want when we boiled down to it was, well, if we're going to commit to not selling to any of your competitors, then we would need a commitment back from the company, from your company, right? So if your company says, hey, we're only going to use Tubcast line of products in our business, then us here at RBS will be like, okay, cool. Now we can justify not selling to any of your competitors and making sure it's exclusive to you. And that's the only thing. Aside from that, everything you keep, everything yours you keep, nothing changes. But we just want people to be committed and have some skin in the game. Because again, we're not committing to the guy next door because you say that you're going to be committed to us. So if that's something that interests you guys, like honestly, man, RBS is looking for partners to get on board with this whole thing. So if you need like a little push, whether it be like actual, like money, that's a conversation that can be had. You need help with your website or social media presence, stuff like that. Like those are things that we can help elevate you to another level and then get you on board with the product. And then that way, we can help you out, you help us out, and then we like build this bigger network of people who are using the product. Some stuff that we discussed, me and Patrick, as far as like the long-term goal for all this stuff, we really want some sort of standardization in the industry, at least with what we're going to do, right? We want everyone who uses the product to all have gone through training, all to kind of have this little network of refinishers that are using the same stuff. They can all talk about it openly and honestly. And we really want to set up like, we want a real sense of community, to where like maybe like once a quarter, right? So like once every 3 months, if not, 2 times a year, whatever's practical. But eventually we want to get to the goal where we have everybody come down to Orlando or go over to New Hampshire where Refinish Bath Solutions is, and just kind of all network and like get together and talk and, see, the latest iteration of the coatings, everyone meet and greet, we can have speakers. Me and Danny Garcia and Ruben discussed this in the last podcast that I did, but like Danny Garcia said he'd come out and talk. Like, imagine having someone like that who's built an empire off of bathtub refinishing, more so than me, right? I mean, he has like 14 guys, they make like $250,000 in revenue a month. And like imagine that, and having access to an individual like that in a place that was made for that kind of context. It would be amazing, and it would open the door to a lot of refinishers. And because in this situation, in this way that we're like laying it all out, because you'd have your territory, he'd have his, the next guy has his, nobody's going to like compete with one another. So, you can take those pieces of advice and know that I'm not just going to come and pull up on your back door and like, take it from you or try to overtake you. Like, that's not the goal here. Right. Like what we really want to do is have that sense of community, have something that is bigger than us, and help people the most we can. And I mean, if you're in a situation where you're in Nevada and California is right next door, and you talk to somebody from Alliance because you need help, funny enough, Alliance, you're forming an alliance, but you get what I'm getting at. Somebody in Nevada and somebody in California meets, and the guy in Nevada needs extra help with a project or whatever. Like somebody from California can go over there and help, or like you can sub it to that guy, not lose out on the opportunity, and not have to worry about future prospective business being taken, because that is your territory. And that because of the way we have everything set up, that if they cross that line, well, then they're going to be dropped and we're going to have to find somebody else for their location, We really want this to be like mutual. Everyone has mutual respect for one another, for one another's territory. And, it is a big group of networking where we all have like minds and build this thing bigger and change the industry that way. This industry needs, like I've talked about it before, it needs some shaking up, man. It needs some new life. It needs some younger people. It needs more people doing the kind of thing I'm doing here, like talking and, kind of making content and bringing it to light. Because my biggest fear with this industry as a whole is that one day it's going to cease to exist. In all honesty, at least the professional side, we really need to keep the blood flowing through this thing, man, because we're all part of the same team. But let me tell you, man, it's one day, things can get, weird, where technology gets to the point where, people are going to be like, well, why even hire a pro? Right. And I feel like there's not a lot of community. There's not a lot of, like, I guess I've said this before, but like influencers in this space. And without that, I feel like it's going to be a lot harder to like get the industry out of a situation where somebody comes up with a crazy rad new coding that like is actually bulletproof and like idiot proof, and it's impossible to mess it up no matter what. That might be 20, 30 years down the line, but if you have influencers in the space who are telling you how they do it, and then we can keep replicating that in other places and building and building and building and know how to talk and how to sell and how to keep the lifeblood going of this entire industry, it's going to take a lot to break us all down. Especially if we're one big unit, right? If we look at the bathtub refinishing industry as one big team, it is super hard to be taken down. But when it's just a bunch of one-man bands and individuals with no no communication to other people, no knowledge of like other sectors of the industry and what other people are doing, then it's easier to come in and shake everything up for the worse. And what we're trying to do is shake things up for the better. So I hope that makes sense. I know it's a little bit of a tangent there, but I hope that like the way that I'm rationalizing all this stuff makes sense. Shout out to Bathtub and Tile Restorations, who was in here a little bit ago. He said, "Let's go." And then All in One Coating says shout out. So appreciate those guys, man. Bathtub and Tile Restoration, obviously out of he's over there in like Missouri area. And then we have in Kansas area too. We also have All in One Coatings, obviously out of Los Angeles, who, is on this live while I'm recording this podcast. But yeah, so those are just some things, man, that have been on my mind. Let's see if there's anything else. I mean, I do want to talk about some benefits that we've experienced because we've switched to roll on, man. We're like liquidating trucks. If anybody needs a truck, like no lie, I'm like selling like 4 of them. It's super cool now because of the way we're doing our installs of the refinishing. Guys can take their sedans or their little, Kia Soul and go and do a job. They have everything like little crates, and there's no mess or anything like that. They don't have to carry around equipment. So I'm getting rid of the trucks because they're just like crazy on gas. But that's something cool that we've enjoyed too. And, the prospects of this entire thing is just what it can do to your business. Aside from just, the product stuff, which obviously is the no smell. We already talked about it ad nauseum, no smell, durability, all that stuff. It allows you to train people faster, which, makes it so that you can grow with your company. So if you get a big opportunity, you don't have to do what Daniel Montalvo did and blow a $500,000 project. I've told that story tons of times. If I would have had a system like this, probably wouldn't have blown it because I could have actually trained a guy in a week rather than trying to train them how to spray on the job and screwing everything up. But the bigger implication for your business here, guys, if you are on the cusp, if you feel like you're just one break away from getting to that next point, Refinish Bath Solutions is interested in helping you guys. Um, our target would be that if you had like 3 to 4 guys and you're right there, obviously if you're a one-man operation, still come to us, still tell us like your story, and we'll see what we can do to help you. But if you're like that in that sweet spot of 3 to 4 and you want to move on to that next level, 3 to 4 technicians, I mean, and you want to move on to that next level and you just need a push, whether it's financial, whether it's helping with your website, whether it's Google Ads help. Those are all tools and resources that we're willing to help. Patrick has a whole social media team that can help put together posts or like print media for you. We have resources and help with people. I mean, I have a direct line to people like Danny Garcia who are like experts at refinishing in the commercial world. And so advice that I've gotten from him, I can pass on to you guys. And then the long-term goal, again, like I said, man, eventually having a place where we can have a Bathtub Refinishers Summit where we send everybody that buys Tubcast over to New Hampshire, to Patrick's facility. You get to see where the stuff is made, the lab where we test everything, meet him, meet the team, fly out the Garcias because they're just great, excellent people. And I know my man Danny he's here in Florida right now still. I know my man Danny Garcia would be down for something like that. Just share some knowledge, get on a stage for something or make a little area. We'll talk and hype you guys up and get you guys to that next level. Those are all things we want to do. We want to do it badly. But it involves, getting people on board, get money to make those things happen and feed the goal and the dream and the vision, which has changed. Like I said, I truly believe that if this is a good fit, if this feels like it's a good fit, right? The roll on, not having all these unnecessary costs, knowing that like you're going to deliver this type of job consistently and you're okay with that. I truly believe it's like a crazy opportunity to have people that are so willing to help. It's like unheard of, right? Patrick mentioned it on the last podcast, and I'll kind of leave it here for now because, it's just me and I don't have anyone to feed off of or anything. But Patrick talked about back in the day when like Hawk Labs used to give you these pamphlets and these flyers, and they'd like put your logo on them. They'd send you a bunch of stuff, marketing material to help you grow. And if they knew of anybody, they'd recommend you to people. And things like that just don't happen anymore. Part of the reason is sometimes these companies get bought out, which is what happened in their case. And a lot of those little things become an extra cost that a big company just doesn't want to absorb. When things become too profit only driven, you lose a little bit of that magic and what helps you build that empire. We're trying to do that, but bring it into the 21st century, man. We're trying to see like what do most businesses struggle with? The internet. They struggle with social. They struggle with paying and making ads. They struggle with their brand identity. They struggle with reviews. Sometimes they struggle monetarily because they're waiting out these payments. Sometimes they don't know how to break through into the commercial or multifamily world. We all have connections or experiences that can help you get to that next level. And that's what we want to do for you guys. So I'm going to leave it there. I'll probably record another one tomorrow, hopefully. If anybody who's on the live, I'm addressing the live real quick. If anybody who's on this live, man, anybody who wants to come on the podcast, whether it's in person or whether it's virtual, we can set it up. I want you guys to come through and, come on here and have a conversation. I love all of you guys. Again, regardless of what you guys might think, I can F off somewhere and play golf and my company will be just fine. Patrick also. Danny Garcia also. But we want to build something worth building. And we want to help people get to the next level. Even one of my greatest haters, my homie over there at Two Rivers Refinishing, who hates the fact that I roll on, at least publicly, because I know behind the scenes he's scheming on it a little bit. But even him, like I tell him all the time, I'll help you with Google Ads. He's struggling with it. He knows. He'll tell you. I talk to him all the time. I check in on him. So I want to do that for more people, help more people, do that whole thing. I appreciate you guys who came through. Appreciate you guys who came to the live. Anybody who listens to this, take care. Love you all. See you guys later. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Bathtub Refinishing Podcast. If you liked what you heard, be sure to keep up with the Bathtub Guys on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, or visit bathtubguys.com for more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.